Y'all, there is nothing worse than that little voice inside that says, you knew better, but you still didn't listen. Like that gut feeling that tells you to do something, it's hella clear. You weren't confused. Your intuition wasn't whispering, hey, I think you may need to do this. It was literally yelling at you, and yet you still didn't listen. That part, that voice that just can keep you up at night because it just keeps looping in your mind like you knew better and still you did not listen to your gut intuition. And the thing about that is that feeling of knowing better, that you knew better and you still didn't listen is actually worse than whatever was the misstep or mistake. Because now you're stuck in this replay of, you didn't listen to me. I gave you the receipt. I tried to protect you, but you still wouldn't listen to me. And that internal tape, that loop that's in your head, it feels like a song that's been playing on repeat that you can't figure out how to get out. And it's hella frustrating. I don't know about you. For me, this is like one of the most frustrating things that I find myself doing. And I know I'm not alone in it because it's exhausting and it keeps you up at night. It keeps you stuck in that loop and that pattern of like, I could have done better. I should have done better. So you start shooting all over yourself. And before we go any further, I want to be clear, today's episode isn't about giving yourself grace in these moments. Yeah, you can do that, but that's not what this is about because these moments call for so much more. Grace is not going to stop the running tape in your head of, like, I should have done better, I knew better, and I didn't do better. What we're talking about in today's episode is that pain of knowing that you let yourself down, that you didn't listen to yourself, and that replay is going on in your mind. Today's episode is to help you kind of get to the root of why the tape keeps playing in your mind. So if you ever have found yourself in one of these situations where the loop keeps going and it's playing, and you didn't listen to your gut, and you're wondering why the voice inside of you still won't let go, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Hello Well with Danielle podcast, your weekly mental vacation for the busy woman who just needs a moment to pause, breathe, and woosah, and get a little healing while you're here. I'm your host, Danielle Washington, and this has been a problem with me because my mind likes to overthink about, especially when I don't listen to my intuition. My intuition has been on point since I was a little girl, yet there's times in my life where I just ignored it. I was like, oh no, I'm going to go with this other thing. I've let someone else talk me out of it. I've second guessed my intuition. You call it intuition. You can call it that gut feeling, that knowing, whatever you call it. Like, we've all been there. And it's time to start naming what it is. Because I think a lot of people get stuck thinking that they're angry at themselves, they're frustrated, they're resenting themselves for not listening to themselves. And it's not regretting making a bad decision, not listening to that gut feeling. That's not what this is about. Because yeah, you might feel angry, you might feel some regret, but that's like the surface level. What's really going on in these situations is that you're disappointed. Not just in the outcome. It's not like I'm just like, I should have been this and things would have been different. What's really going on when you're feeling angry and resentful at yourself for finding yourself in this moment of, I should have listened to myself. I knew better, but I didn't listen, is that you're disappointed in yourself. The one person in your entire life who has always tried to protect you, who has always tried to have your back, has no ill feelings, is not trying to catch you in some situation. The one person that has got you, there's a disappointment in not listening to that one person, not listening to her. And that's where that frustration comes into play. And it's not frustration because it's really, again, that disappointment. Not disappointment in the misstep. It's that it feels like a self-betrayal. And that's kind of a level down from the frustration and the anger is this disappointment because it feels like a self-betrayal that we just betrayed ourselves. And that sucks. And it stays with you. That's that loop that keeps coming on, that reliving the self-betrayal, which often feels way worse than whatever we did or didn't listen to. That re-looping over and over and playing in your head. Why didn't I listen to myself? How could I betray the one person who has had my back from day one? Not just the disappointment in how things turned out, but it's a disappointment in yourself. The fact that you ignored that person, that's the wound. That's the wound that feels like someone just knifed you and then started twisting it over and over and over. And that's that loop. That's that replay. Because when you betray yourself like that, your mind doesn't move on. Your body doesn't either, actually. Like that self-betrayal becomes that tape. It becomes that thing that replays over and over and over. May start off as a whisper, then turns into a yelling moment of, you knew better. Why didn't I say no? I saw it coming, and yet I still did this. I had the signs, I had the receipts, and yet I still didn't do better. Let me be real, you don't need me to tell what your loop sounds like because you know what that loop sounds like. You already know what your loop sounds like. We all have our own personal, that's what mine sounds like. But you've heard it in those silent moments in bed that don't feel so silent in your head. It's just that repeating nagging of you knew better. You saw this, you should have saw this company. It's a should. You should have saw this company. You should have known better. You should have done better. And the loop, let's be real, it's not a self-punishment. But it is something that continues to live not just in your thoughts, it also lives in your body. And I don't think people realize that it still lives in your body. So when that loop is going on in your head, it's also settling into your chest. Maybe there's a chest pain or in your neck and that neck and shoulder pain. It's that tightening in your jaw. It's the thing that makes it feel hard to exhale. So you're like holding your breath. So it may show up in your sleep. So you're having problems sleeping, that insomnia. It may show up in your shoulders and feeling like that extra pain in the neck or that pain that a lot of us get in that shoulder blade area. Or it may show up in your energy and you're not realizing why your energy feels off, why you're not feeling like yourself, because it shows up in our bodies in so many ways. Because when you start ignoring the root cause of some of this self-betrayal feelings, it gets ignored. And when it gets ignored, your body is still holding on to this message. So what do you do? How do you handle it? And what does it still mean? We've talked about the fact that the loop goes on and on, that it still lives in your body, and that it's not about frustration. It's about feeling that self-betrayal. And I talked about this in the beginning, that this isn't about giving yourself grace. Grace helps, but it doesn't stop the running tape in your mind. As a constant overthinker, I've had to think about this situation a lot in my life because I've replayed in my head over and over situations about how I wasn't listening to myself. And that thinking and reflecting on it, I got to a deeper level of the situation, realizing that this wasn't about necessarily self-betrayal. And yes, it is about self-betrayal and it is about disappointing self. But what I really started realizing, and this is what kind of hit me hard, was that what this situation was really about is that I was grieving a part of myself that was feeling unheard, unseen. That part that knew, that tried to help me, but it felt silenced by my own fear, my own pressures, by the patterns of self-doubt. And that's when I started recognizing this wasn't a situation about me feeling disappointed in myself. This was grief. This was a part of me that was grieving the moment that I didn't choose myself. This is the grief of not trusting my own voice. This is that grief of myself feeling dismissed. And I had to hold space for her. And I had to realize, okay, there's a voice inside of me. There's a part of me that's feeling like this little girl who is connected to so many parts of my life that felt like she wasn't able to be seen, like she was trying to speak her truth, but didn't feel heard and didn't feel seen. And when I was able to get to that space of, okay, this is that part of me that's grieving, how do I help this part of me that is grieving? Not how do I shame her? How do I try to give her grace? Not how do I, just be like, oh, well, I betrayed her. But how do I help her process her grief? And for you, I invite you into that space of working through how do you process that grief. But we start with holding space. Because if you've ever felt this pain that I'm talking about right now, I need you to know you're not broken. So many of us have been there. That doesn't help knowing that people have been there, but a lot of us have been there. And that maybe for the first time in a while, it's time to listen to that little girl inside of you that is grieving. She's still there. She's still speaking. Even if you missed her before, she's still there. So take a moment to pause. No rush. Just take a few breaths and just be with her. You may find yourself in this loop again. You most likely will find yourself in this loop again. You may ignore that gut intuition again. But I'm hoping after hearing this podcast episode that maybe next time when that tape starts playing, like, you should have known better. I gave you all the signals. Why didn't you listen to me? You knew better and you still didn't do better. I'm hoping the next time it happens, you'll know what it's really asking for. There's a part of you that's not asking yourself to shame yourself. It's not necessarily asking for grace, but it's instead asking to be heard, to be honored, and not to be abandoned by you. And that's how I think we'll do a little bit better. I really hope this podcast episode helps someone because this has been a huge problem in my life. It's one of the worst feelings because it has kept me feeling like I was captive in this horrible loop in my life. And so I just really wanted to share some of these insights that have helped me in the situation. Not perfect. I haven't figured it out completely, but having this awareness that this is more of disappointment, grief being masked in the form of disappointment and frustration has been a shift in my life. If this helps you, please share this episode. If you want to talk about it or you have any comments about, that how you've dealt with it or if you've experienced the situation, leave us a note, leave us a comment. I love to keep this conversation going. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.